Hi, and welcome to Speechcast, the essential public speaking podcast. My name is Dave Aizer, and thank you so much for spending some time with me today. And I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Every week on this show, I chat with public speakers and broadcasters and people who are doing great things in this industry. And my guest today is awesome. I love this guy. His energy is off the charts. His name is Keith L. Brown. Keith speaks about motivation, empowerment, mental health, and more. In fact, Insight Publishing and the International Speakers Network named him one of the top speakers and consultants in education. He is so much fun. He's such a charismatic, great speaker, and his energy is contagious. So be prepared to be inspired. My conversation with Keith L. Brown is next.
This is Speechcast, the essential public speaking podcast. Here's national TV host, public speaking and media coach, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author, Dave Aizer.
Keith, awesome to have you on the show. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Man, look, I'm empowered, not devoured, diligent Dave. I just want to start off by giving you our team chant, which is GOODJOB. Good job, good job. I had to give you that for all of the work that you do on a daily basis to motivate, stimulate, and elevate nationally and globally. So I'm excited to be with you today.
Man, I love it. You didn't waste any time ramping up. You didn't need the first quarter or the first inning to get in game shape. You just came out just firing, just on all cylinders. I knew it. I knew the legend would rise. Thanks for bringing that energy, my man.
Absolutely. I just believe, the old saying, when you catch on fire with enthusiasm, people will come for miles to watch you burn. So listen, I always stay enthused, Dave, not because of, but in spite of. We know everything that's going on. And so I just believe when I bring enthusiasm and I'm a beacon of light, then that's going to get others to be amped up, to be pumped up, and just be inspired. And that's my goal every day.
Well, I will tell anyone listening or watching this podcast that immediately, as soon as it's over, they should go watch your videos on YouTube or wherever we send them at the end of this interview to watch, because that's the word that jumps out at me with you is enthusiasm. I've been in the inspirational speaking game for many, many years. A lot of my friends are. Everyone has their own nuance and their own style. But to watch you, man, you are just like, you're like 100 miles an hour, but on point, not manic and over the top and all over the place. You got your message, but your energy is crazy. I love it.
Thank you so much. And that comes primarily from working with children, youth, and families. And when you work with children and youth like I do across the country, across the world, and a lot of my work is on college campuses. And so, you have to stay engaged. You have to keep your audience engaged, because at the end of the day, I always tell educators, for example, how many of you like to sit in a boring professional development and nobody raises their hands? And I always say, well, your scholars, your students don't deserve to sit in boring classrooms. So I believe that if we engage, if we have enthusiasm and we're relevant, then I believe that we're going to make the greatest impact. And that's what I seek to do.
I think one of the challenges with what we do for a living is being energetic and enthused on the days where you personally are just not feeling it. I'm sure that you've had days in your long career where you have a cold or you're in a bad mood or you just got bad news. Now, your style is to be that energetic guy. So on days where you're just like, man, I just don't want to do this today. I can't do it. What is your process to get there to give them a great show every time?
Well, Dave, a long time ago, I adopted this theory because I've been in the game for a couple of decades myself. And in the beginning, I adopted the idea that the best way for me to get out of my funk, the best way for me to pick myself up is to help others who are suffering, to have that mindset. I actually go into an audience with the belief that I can be the individual who either saves their life, or I could be the individual who causes them to go over the edge. And so the other thing I do is I always not only come in as the messenger, but I also come in as an audience member. And being that I'm the audience member, then I deserve to be inspired too. But not just any audience member, mind you. I come in as the young man who was labeled special ed most of his life. I come in as the young man who lost a brother to sickle cell anemia, who lost a sister to the AIDS virus. I come in as the man who he and his wife lost 2 babies, but are blessed to have a 25-year-old soaring son. I come in as the man whose mother is battling Alzheimer's disease, and I need that pickup. And so when I am not feeling it, I just keep in mind all of that I'm going through and all that my audience must be going through. And that gives me fuel, Dave. That gives me fuel to be resilient and to push through. And I don't know any other way but to be over the top. I don't know any other way. This is what I do, and it's who I am. It's interesting that most people say, Dave, what I do and who I am are 2 different things. Well, not for me. It's just the opposite. What I do is who I am. And I know you can relate to that. I know you can relate to that because I know the type of husband you are. I know the type of father you are. I've seen that. I've seen videos with you interacting with your child. And so that's how I've been. Even with my son at 25, I interact with him the same way as when he was 5 years old, with the same love, the same enthusiasm. I still kiss my son on the cheek. And so when I'm coming out, I can't kiss all these young people on the cheek, right? Because then people would think I'm a maniac or something. But I can give them a symbolic kiss on the cheek. I can give them a symbolic high five, a symbolic hug. And so, man, look, since this pandemic, I've been giving virtual hugs to millions of people across the globe, but I'm going to be enthused. And I will tell your audience out there, one of the things you can do to validate yourself every day is when you wake up out of bed and your feet hit the floor, start clapping. And people say, why would you do that? I said, you need to start clapping because it might be the only standing ovation you receive all day. So I believe, man, when you get out of bed, my wife thinks I'm crazy. You understand? So when you get out of bed, when your feet hit the floor, start clapping because it might be the only standing ovation you receive all day. But you're talking about elevating yourself. You're talking about validating yourself. And so we do that in my home. We do that in our home. And man, it makes a world of difference.
That was one of the greatest answers to any question I've ever asked in my history of journalism. There's so many things to dive into from that answer. I was trying to remember them as you kept talking. I might have forget 4 or 5 great points that you made, but let me try.
Yes. Yes.
The first part of the answer, you said something which I think puts a lot of pressure on yourself. I'm paraphrasing, but you said that you're either the person that's going to save them or the person that's going to put them over the edge.
Absolutely.
That is a big responsibility that you're giving yourself.
Yeah, it is. And the reason I give myself that responsibility is because I take it personal and someone did it for me. And I'm not just delivering a message, I'm delivering hope. And I know that's the difference between me, you, and a lot of others. I tell speakers that I coach and train on a daily basis, don't ever look at yourself as delivering a speech or delivering a message. See yourself as delivering hope. Because what you'll do is when you're delivering just a message or a speech, you'll find yourself in the mirror practicing your speech, going over every word, going over every line, going over every paragraph. There are times when you might sound robotic, but if you would just go in and you would speak from the heart, even if you have your little note cards, because you don't want to lose your place. But once you have your place, then speak from the heart. Speak from the heart. Don't deliver a message, deliver hope. Because at the end of the day, you make a difference when you can get to the hearts of the people and not just the heads of the people. So many of us are trying to get to people's heads and change the mindset, but we got to get to their hearts, because when you get to their hearts, that will help change the mindset. And that's just been my theory, and it's worked for the last 2 decades. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but what I am saying is I know it makes a difference, and it has made a profound difference in the audience that I've spoken to nationally and globally. And how do I know that? Because of all the great feedback. Not that you did a good job or not that you did a great job, but you helped turn my life around, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, you said it so brilliantly. I don't really have to add much to that. You nailed it. I would just say in agreement with you that you can rehearse and you should have note cards if you need to. That's fine. But if you trip on a word, if you lose your place for a half a second, that stuff doesn't matter. It matters to you as a speaker. You want to be perfect. You want to be great. But if you connect and if you inspire and if you give people hope and if you speak from the heart, that's what sticks. That's what people are thinking about a day from now, a week from now, a year from now. Okay. The next thing you said, I don't think I have ever heard this, ever. I don't think a speaker has ever said to me that they put themselves in the audience. That's
Absolutely.
so cool. I never thought about that. So if I'm understanding you correctly, when you're giving a speech, if you see an empty chair, you're simultaneously giving the speech and sitting in that chair?
Absolutely. I see myself as labeled special ed. I see myself as an individual who was systemically labeled. I see myself as that young man who was always loud, but still dealt with self-esteem issues. I see myself at my lowest points. And it is my responsibility to connect with that little boy in me, to connect with that young man in me, and to connect with the man in me as well, and to uplift that individual. And I know if I'm doing that, then I'm uplifting that audience. And the other thing is, I'm always engaging audience members, because what'll happen is, and I'm sure you felt this, you've done a speech, and there's always going to be that one audience member that's really vibing with you. They're really feeling what you're saying, and you can just feel it. And I connect with that person. And many times I found after my messages, when I'm engaging the audience members, which I do on a regular basis before COVID, I'm finding that the individual who's the most engaged, who's the most hyped, who's the most responsive is the individual who's going through the most, that's going through a lot. And so they want to share, they want to tell you their stories. And so if I can just put myself in a bubble for 2, 3, 4 hours, no matter what I'm going through, I look at that as therapy for me. See, I was hired to bring therapy, but what many of my clients don't understand is the audience is therapy to me. When you see body language changing, when you see those who are coming in and they're slouched over and their body language change and they're sitting up, when they come in texting on their cell phones and they put their cell phones down, when they're taking pictures of you, and when they turn that camera on, and they start recording what you're saying, and they start taking notes and they connect with you, and you walk by and they're giving you just spontaneous high fives before COVID, of course, man, there's nothing like it. And so just for that time away, it's almost like if you're going through something real bad and you just go out just to get an ice cream cone, just to say, you know what, I'm going to leave the office. I'm going to go out for 1 hour. I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to leave the office. I'm going to leave all of my troubles behind. And I'm going to allow myself 1 to 2 hours of peace and serenity. So that's my peace and serenity when I'm on that stage, no matter what I'm going through.
Yeah, man. It's so true. It's so hard to give a speech like that and then try to take a 9 to 5 job and sit behind a desk all day. It's like, I think people sometimes don't understand, like the rush. And yes, when you give a speech, yes, your goal is to help others and inspire others. But let's be honest. I don't know if the word is selfish or what the word is, but there's a part of you that kind of feeds off it and thrives on it a little bit too. So yeah, it's great to help other people, but damn, it feels good to crush a speech.
Yeah, man. That's it. You know what? Because that's your calling, man. That's your purpose. And let me tell you, the greatest challenge for me is, this, as speakers, we operate in anonymity a lot of times, right? Okay. But here's the thing. 95% of the audiences I speak to, whether they're children, youth, or adults, they expect to have a time that they're just wasting their time. They expect the speaker to be boring. They are used to speakers coming behind that podium, man. I just want to come on stage and just kick the podium off the stage personally, all right? All right. So I get great joy in looking at the audience as the road audience, the road fans. Here I am on the road. I'm coming in. I'm the enemy. The home team is getting all the cheers, but here I am on the road. And so if I'm on the road, initially I'm going to be booed, right? That's the thought process that I have. But when that music comes on, man, and whether I'm playing the Eye of the Tiger from the Rocky, soundtrack, or whether I'm playing Kool and the Gang Celebration, or one of the songs that young people like in hip hop or rock and roll or whatever it is, man. When that music comes on, the atmosphere changes. And I come running down the aisle, Dave. I don't want to come from behind the curtains, man. I come running down the aisle, giving high fives before COVID, and I want to set the atmosphere. So my goal early on is to set the atmosphere and to change their paradigm within the first 2 minutes.
Right, because I'm now in my mind, I'm envisioning you doing that, and I'm envisioning some kid on his cell phone texting, going like, this is going to be boring. I don't even know who this dude is. What a waste of time. All of a sudden, Eye of the Tiger starts playing. You come running down, ton of energy, and I see this kid being like, whoa, hold on a second.
Yes, man, and that's pure joy. And so the joy is, man, when they're afterwards, they're sending me the DMs on Instagram at Keith L. Brown _ man, and they're following me on Instagram. And you know, when you can get young people and young adults to follow you on social media, right? You know, you're doing something right. So they want to follow me. They want to send DMs. They're sharing these videos. I'm seeing videos of myself out there. And these are the young people. So, you know, when young people do that, you're making a profound difference, because a lot of times, you know, like I know the adults, a lot of times are politically correct. Young people are real, they're raw, they're transparent. And so that makes a difference. But it does give me a big rush, because when you are doing your purpose and you're doing it well, you can't help but to get a rush. And listen, I don't apologize for that at all.
No way. No way. It's funny talking about kids. My first significant TV job was on Nickelodeon. And
Yeah.
talking about kids being honest. So I'm doing this Nickelodeon TV show, and kids come. We had a studio audience, with a live studio audience. So kids would come to the show. And I just remember, like, one kid came up to me and was like, wow, you're taller on TV. You're shorter in person. And I was like, man, kids are honest. Whoa.
Yeah.
So to your point, if a kid tells you did a good job, you did a good job, because they're as honest as they come.
You know,
I want to ask you a technique question, because because you got a lot of energy as a speaker, and you come down running, and you're this hyped guy. But I'm curious, do you find places within your speech to bring it down, to slow down? Because you're a professional, you're a pro. I've seen your stuff. You're great. You know, you can't be 100 miles per hour start to finish, because then the message gets lost. So how do you figure out those points where you're like, oh, this is a good place for me to bring my voice down and slow my energy down?
I'm so glad you asked that question. That typically happens after the music, after the initial song. I come in with a hype song. I have everyone giving high fives before COVID. And I have to keep saying that, you know, because I believe in social distancing as well, right? Socially distanced physically, but close at heart. That's what I look at it as. And so, you know, the music comes on, audience is hyped, everyone's hyped, you know, they're going crazy. And then I say, you know, everybody have a seat. I do my good job chant that I gave you. And then I go right into my story. And when I go into my story, that's when the reality sets in for the audience. That's when the music is off. And that's when I can bring it down and talk about my story of what I've had to overcome, some of what I shared earlier. When I talk about that, they're really engaged. I can see them sitting on the edge of their seats, because many times my story resonates, because they all have stories, and everybody we talk to, they have stories as well. And it is at that point where there's a certain tone, a certain overcast right there. And then before I tell my story, because, you know, a lot of times when we're sharing our story of how we've overcome and we're being resilient, a lot of times our audience members, they will have empathy. But I always tell my clients, you can't leave them there. You can't leave them there. You cannot leave them at that point. And so I'll tell a joke, man. You know, I'll tell a joke about the time that I was in special ed, but here it is, Miss Finkelstein, my 5th grade teacher, older, elderly white female, young black male, you know, and here she is, has me in the hall every day at PS 52 in Jamaica, Queens. And she says, get ready, Keith. And I transform myself into the Black Bob Barker. And as my classmates are coming down the hall, man, I'm like, come on down, you know, and the audience, man, they fall out in laughter. But here's the sad part about it is that I was labeled and mislabeled, but the laughter and the humor comes in the fact that I was able to build the foundation for my gift, which is speaking and coaching and training. And so I always tell my clients and speakers everywhere, you know, it gets serious, and there are going to be times during the speech where it's serious, but whatever you do, don't leave them there. You can't leave them there. And so that's what I do.
Yeah, man, that's so well said. You got to take them on that ride, but they've got to leave thinking that anything is possible, or they can get through their situation, or they're just
That's
smiling
right.
on the way out. It's funny you mentioned in that last answer, you mentioned Bob Barker. And I'm wondering if this happens to you where you use references that kids don't relate to, and you're like, man, I'm old. Because that happens to
Yes,
me sometimes, right? Like I'll talk to kids, but I'll talk to kids about Bob Barker is what, I don't know, 60s, 70s, whatever, whenever. Um,
yeah,
I'll talk about like 90s rock, and I'll mention you too, and Bono, and it's like over their
yes.
heads. And I'm just thinking, okay, note to self: next time I give this speech to this crowd, come up with an updated version of you too.
Well, yeah, man. And see, for me, I come out and I grab the mic and I start rapping. And so, you'll have a lot of these high school and college kids, the kids to me, right? You have a lot of the high school and college kids, I can see some of them looking like, oh no, don't do that. Like put the mic down. But then you have some who are really excited about it because here they see this, right? They see that silver beard I got going on and they're like, man, he's trying real hard. And so I make it a point to go to my son. And, my wife has me practicing the latest dances and things of that nature. And so, I get nieces and nephews to critique my moves, Dave. And look, I just let it all hang out, man. I just go out there and let it all hang out because this is what I understand. You said the key word. The key word is connection. And if you're not relevant and you're not connecting, you're just saying a bunch of words. And they'll be looking right at you, but they'll be thinking about something else. So they'll be looking right at you or they'll be tuning you out. And so you have to know, even when it appears that they're paying attention, you have to know that they're engaged. And here's the other thing. If they're silent, it doesn't mean that you're not touching their lives. It might just mean that they're processing what you're saying. So there's so many techniques to this speaking game, as you know.
Right, absolutely. And off of what you just said, I also have learned that you can't get inside the mind of someone in the audience. To your point, if they are quiet or if they don't laugh at a joke or something, it doesn't necessarily mean they're not buying in.
Right.
They're like so moved, and this is how they're handling it, or maybe they just have a different register than other people. So I always talk to speakers I coach about controlling what you can control and being present. And I think that's kind of that's what you're saying, right? Which is to say, do your thing, be vulnerable, be open, be honest, and you may, even though you might be connecting with the whole room, you may not necessarily know that by the look on their eyes.
Absolutely. And that's so true because, anytime you're a communicator, you want that feedback. I don't care who you are. If you're a teacher, uh, you're a CEO in corporate America, you're a coach trainer like we are, you're a faith-based leader. It doesn't matter. You're a parent talking to your child, spouse talking to your spouse. It doesn't matter. You're looking for a certain amount of feedback. But here's the reality that I learned. I remember when I was at an NSA convention, National Speakers Association. I remember I had an opportunity to speak and I said, good afternoon, and nobody said anything. And then I said, good afternoon. And I remember afterwards, there was a leading speaker and she said to me, their job is not to speak to you. Your job is to speak to them. And I thought that was I thought that was so profound. I really did. I thought that was profound. And so that also taught me, because that was early on in my career, early 2000s. But you know what that taught me? That taught me to come out on fire, and then they will speak to you. They will, so I always tell my clients this: don't ever go up to the mic and say, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. No, don't do that. I need you to come out, come out on fire, come out. And then people will say, I have clients who say, well, Coach B, Mr. Impossible, I'm not you. I don't jump on tables. I don't come out to music. I say, that's right. You don't have to be me, but you had better discover what we learned with our son when he was a child, when we used to go to McDonald's. And I know he was hungry and we would have our father-son time, or my wife would have the mother-son time, with him. And, he might go to McDonald's and we're going through the drive-thru, and yes, he's hungry. But at the end of the day, what our son really wanted out of that Happy Meal was the toy. That's what he wanted. He wanted the toy. So you might not be Dave. You might not be Keith, but you had better discover what your toy is. And that's how you get the audience to play. You better discover what your method is, what your go-to thing is, that which gets the audience engaged early, because you can't get them engaged 10 minutes in. I'm talking about the first 20 to 30 seconds. You okay? That's going to set the foundation of what type of message you're going to have.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I tell speakers, don't tell me what you're going to tell me. Just start telling me. So sometimes
Oh,
people,
wow.
right? Sometimes they'll come out and they'll be like, "Hi, today we're going to talk about this, and first I'm going to tell you about this, and then I'm going to talk about this. Then after that, we're going to do this, and then we're going to break for lunch, and then oh no, come on, get out there and get right into storytelling, just right from the jump. When I was prepping to interview you, like honestly, there's so many ways this can go because you've written a bunch of stuff, you've got a lot of really cool programs, you're just involved in so many wonderful causes, and I was just trying to pick and choose what might be the top things we had to cover, but I just want to leave it to you because literally you've got like 10, 15, 20 initiatives that you've started. So would you like to talk about one or two or three things that you got going on that you're super pumped about?
Yeah, well, absolutely. One of the programs that we have that I'm really fired up about is called the PEP Rally. Okay, I have a program dealing with right? The PEP Rally. But incidentally, PEP stands for Pupils, Educators, and Parents. And we've had this program now for over a decade, Pupils, Educators, and Parents. And this is our program for school districts and family advocacy agencies. And we're really excited about this because a lot of times schools will invite speakers to come in and talk to their kids, right? We want you to come in because our kids are acting up or our kids aren't motivated. We want you to come in and get the kids right. So as a former educator myself, I knew that many times the issue wasn't with the young people I served, but my colleagues in many instances. And so I had to develop this program called the PEP Rally, where we come in. And the first component is to speak to the pupils in most cases, to talk about social emotional learning or to take them through that, to talk about college and career readiness, to tell them my story and to be transparent and let them know not only am I here to motivate you, because that's just the start. I want to empower you and then they'll say, so what do you mean when you say empower us? Well, I want you to leave talking about me, but thinking about yourself. Okay. I want you to leave talking about the message you heard today or the hope you received, but thinking about yourself and your future. So you can get all the motivation, education, transformation, but if there's no implementation, nothing will change. So we start out with the pupils, and then we have the educators, and that's our professional development. And I like to do it in that order because what happens is if I do the professional development first, the teachers really don't see me engage with the kids. So when they see me engage with the kids, then they can start thinking about strategies they can bring to their own classrooms. And then the final component is the parents, family and community engagement. Because if I can't meet with the parents, a lot of times I don't even want to go in a school district. And what happens is it never fails. When I'm effective with the kids, they run home and tell their parents, look, you got to come see this guy. You got to come out and see Mr. Impossible. He's going to be giving away T-shirts. He's going to be throwing books in the audience. And what will happen is, and that's on the middle and high school level, because on the elementary level, they're showing up anyway. The parents are very diligent when their kids are in elementary school. But you really got to have a spaghetti dinner or something for them to get them out to PTA meetings, right? And so we do that. So the kids go home and they're my greatest ambassador. So we're really excited about the PEP Rally. And it's been most challenging because of COVID-19, where we can't really put our hands on them. So we've been doing a lot of virtual presentations. And now, Dave, I'm really excited about the upcoming school year, what we call 202 WON, not 2021, but 202 WON, where we're going from surviving to thriving. And so I get to go in now as a COVID recovery coach, man, and really help school districts, pupils, educators, and parents transition back into the real world of what it's going to look like on site. So that's one of our programs I'm really excited about. And then the next is right in line with that. I have a program called Fathers, FATHERS, not FARTHER. And that started with my work with young fathers in Head Start who just needed some coaching and training on connecting with their children, because many of them, they grew up in single parent homes with primarily a mother there. And so we mentor dads, we validate fathers with that, and we teach them to be an FATHER, not a FARTHER. And even if you're not on good terms with the mother, you want to still respect that your child's mother, and you want to stay engaged with your child. If you and the mother got a divorce, don't divorce your children. And so it's been an impactful program. We have the principles. I will reflect you. I will, talking to the children now, I will reflect you. I will respect you. And I will protect you. I won't neglect you. And so those are two initiatives that we're really, really excited about, because we believe if we can bring families together, then we can bring America together.
I only got 4 words to say. You
Yes, sir.
are the man. What a guy. Yes, sir. I can feel people Googling you throughout the course of this conversation. Let's make their job and their lives easier. What is the best way to find you? How can people get their fill of Keith Brown?
Absolutely. I would say out there, Twitter, Keith L. Brown 1911. Definitely follow me on Twitter, Keith L. Brown 1911. Got a lot of videos on YouTube at Keith L. Brown 1911, but then Instagram. A lot of people are on Instagram. I'm at Keith L. Brown _. I like to do the underscore. Keith L. Brown _ on Instagram. And then Keith L. Brown, Mr. I Am Possible on Facebook. And more videos on my website at keithlbrown.com. So follow me on all social media platforms. If you have a desire to be inspired and empowered on a daily basis, I promise that I won't disappoint. This is my life's work. This is my why. And I believe, my why makes me cry, man. My why makes me cry. And so I'm just honored to walk in my why. I'm honored to have been on your podcast today, man, because you walk in your why every single day. And I believe we had a synergy today. And that's why I tell people to stay away from negative people, Dave. That's why I do that, because you and I, there was a synergy because of the positive vibes we bring to the platform. Okay, so I said, well, they say, well, no, negative and positive is good together. I said, yeah, if you're charging a battery, and only that's temporary. Okay, so you want to stay around positive people who have the same mindset. I inspire negative people. I don't hang out with them.
Yeah, man. No, your energy is off the charts. Keith, you're the best, man. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, I appreciate you. And remember, Dave stands for a determined advocate who is valuing everyone. A determined advocate valuing everyone.
Did you just make that up, or were you working on that ahead of time?
No, man, I just made that up, man. That's the special ed in me. They thought it was something else, man, but we are spontaneous. We got big imaginations, Dave. GOODJOB. Good job. Good job.
See you, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you so much for listening to and watching this episode of Speechcast with Keith L. Brown. I told you he was going to be a great guest. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends and please subscribe. And of course, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, I would love it if you could leave a rating and a review. That would be super awesome of you. Have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you again next week with another brand new episode of Speechcast. Take care.